Hi everyone, this is video 3 of Knit Along the Sloth with Lois Crowther on the Wild Knitted Animal Friends. And if you've done video 1 and 2, you should have 2 legs like this. If you're knitting in the round, if you're knitting in the flat, your legs wouldn't be finished off across the top. We've talked about that in previous videos. So I am ready to start our knitted arms. I hope you all are having a good time doing this. It's kind of fun. I've really enjoyed seeing the many comments that you are leaving. Fun to see the different countries and states and provinces that many are you from. It just really makes it fun to see how far of a reach. We're around the world, ladies, in this group, so that makes it really fun. Just to see who all is enjoying these really, really nice little knitted animals. So we're going to jump right in to getting the arms started, and that's going to be on page 72. But I did want to show you one thing. I've noticed that on the website a number of times people ask about knitting these critters, you know, in a different gauge or in a different yarn, and you know, I've always said back, absolutely. You just have to be consistent with then the right gauge for the clothing and everything else. If your critter is knitted in a DK weight, it's going to be a larger one. Nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to show you my little girl here. I call her my big bone gal. And I hope you can get a good picture of her. She is... you know, the hedgehog, and I've done the hedgehog twice, and I couldn't figure out what I had done for her to come out. I'll hold up, well, here, I'll hold, this is the squirrel. You can see the squirrel's tail. So look how much, oh, can I get this over here in the video so they both show up? I can't get their heads all in at the same time, but how can I make this show better? Oh, if I moved way back. Oh, duh. I get my bearings off from time to time. But try to have their feet at the same place. Okay, she is definitely, you know, almost a full head taller. She's definitely a lot bigger around the middle. And what I did is I knitted the body on a larger gauge, and this was back when I was sewing the arms on. So when I discovered that I had used a larger needle for the body, then of course I had to make everything else, you know, accordingly with the larger needle. So I think it's kind of fun to have them different sizes. We're all different sizes in life, right? And so so I refer to her as my big bone gal, and everybody should have one of these. Now see, I've lost our camera, but you can kind of maybe see a little bit in comparing their legs as to overall how much bigger she is. But I think that's grand, you know, make them all different. And I think by using some of the yarn that we have in our stash, using up some, then you know, they are going to turn out different sizes. So I just wanted to throw that in. That's an extra today. So we're going to turn the camera around so you can actually see what I'm doing. So we'll get the arms started. I start out the arm knitting, of course, from the top down. And we know that we need to have a cast on of 14 stitches. And I do the provisional cast on because I want live stitches at the top of my arm that I'm going to actually then knit those live stitches right into the stitches on the body when it comes to where the arm attaches to the body. For instance, over here on the leg, we would have some stitches here. This is what I want to end up with, is some stitches that are going to be on a needle that I can actually knit with. If we just cast on, then we would have to be picking up some stitches, and we would have more knitting than what we would want at the top of that arm. It won't be as smooth. So by doing the provisional cast on, that's the way I like to do it. You may find another way that you would prefer to do it, but to do the provisional cast on, we're going to actually crochet a row of stitches onto the needle that then get taken out later. So we're just left then with the live stitches. So to do that, I make a slip knot on my little any crochet hook, or this is that dandy little tool that I like to use. And so what we are going to do is get my live yarn, and this can be any yarn that you choose. I usually use a little bit lighter weight yarn than what I actually knit with, but I don't think you have to do it that way. I probably wouldn't go a lot heavier yarn because you don't want a lot bigger stitch up there to deal with, but so just a piece of scrap yarn, doesn't have to be anything special. So I have a slip stitch here on my needle, and I'm going to have my yarn behind my knitting needle. Here's my knitting needle, here is the crochet hook, and here is my live yarn attached to the ball of yarn. And so the live yarn is behind the knitting needle. I take my crochet hook and I just come over, pick that up and pull it through. And then I'm going to bring my live yarn to the back of my knitting needle again. And I've got my first stitch of the 14 that I need to have. Now, no need to make these real tight. Better if you don't make them real tight. So that's number 2. So when you get it pulled through, your yarn is always on the top of the knitting needle. You just have to slip it back behind there. And now this will be the 3rd stitch. Bring the yarn to the back. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I think I said 14, didn't I? Yep. This should be the last one, but I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Well, look at that. I got more than I needed. So I'm going to pull that out. This last stitch I'm going to leave. I didn't count that one. I'm just going to double count again. I'm leaving one over here on my needle, my crochet hook. Let's count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Perfect. So now I'm going to just knit a little chain, like maybe about 4 stitches. That'll just secure this end. And now I'm not going around the knitting needle, I'm just making a little chain right here. I am not a crocheter, but I can make a little chain, kinda. Okay, my sister is a very good crocheter. I'm gonna drop my needles here if I'm not careful. Get my little box out, snip that off, and then you pull. Probably can't see that because I've got so much stuff behind me here. And you're just going to pull your yarn through that last stitch, so that's not going to unravel. And here are our 14 stitches, which is the top of the arm, and we're going to start knitting in the round. Don't need that yarn anymore. And kind of clean up my little space here, so hopefully you can have a decent picture of what I'm doing. So now I'm going to divide these 14 stitches. I'm going to put 7 on each needle. I'm going to put them on 2 needles. So I'm going to just slip 7 of them off. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's my 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. And now I'm going to set, I'm just folding this in half, making sure I don't have a twist. So I'm just bringing that together. Make sure your stitches are on the top and your cast on is down here on the underneath side. I'm going to slip them down to this other end of my needles so I have them all set up, ready to crochet with. And I'm just, or excuse me, knit with. I'm going to get those little yarn ends out of the way so they're not going to bother me. Find the end of my yarn over here, and we're just going to start knitting. And when I start out, I don't secure this. I don't tie a knot in nothing. This sheep geese really works great. It kind of has enough of a texture to it that it just kind of grabs it's, you know, up against the next stitch, and I don't really have an issue with the unraveling. But at the end, when that arm gets knitted in, these ends are going to get secured in, so you don't need to, and you don't want to tie them to these stitches here, the provisional cast on, because that's going to all go away. Sometimes this little first cast on stitch kind of gets twisted, so you just want to make sure that you've got, you can see 7 stitches there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is my 7th stitch, and that's going to be my, well, actually I'm going to make this the first stitch that I'm going to knit into, and there's a reason why, because I'm going to come around this way, and that'll help secure this the wrapping around there, because we're going to start knitting in the round. So I'm going to move my needle, flip down to the cable part of the needle. It just gives me a little more, you know, room, and get the bend of those allows me to get the needle out of the way. And I'm just going to knit into that first stitch. Okay. And now, of course, slip that off just like you're just regular knitting. And I'm going to come over here now and knit down this side right over here. Let's just move that to the cable side. A little fiddly, that's okay. We can handle that. And I just want to make sure I'm on my 7th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, because see, this has just got wrapped a little bit around the needle. Don't worry about that. It's all going to come out afterwards. So this cast on, you don't need to be too picky about if it gets a twist in it, because it's going to all unravel and be gone. Okay, that's the first stitch on this side of the needle here. And just start knitting all the way around. And when we come back over here, we can tighten up our tension on this little intersection right here. So don't worry too much about that. When we come back around to it, that'll all get put together. And like I say, all of this that we just crocheted on, which was our cast on, it's all going to get unraveled and go away. So don't need to worry too much about it. Okay, now we're ready to do the other side of our needle. So I kind of do a cartwheel turn there with it. Get my little ends all straightened back out. And now we're doing the other side of our cast on. So this is really what we're knitting right now in the main body color, what the arm is. This really is row number 1. We're not having an actual cast on that's going to be staying on these needles and attached to the body. It'll be the live stitches, so it will end up looking a little bit different than what maybe if you've not done this before. You don't have that cast on edge, and we don't want the cast on edge. That's why we want it. We did it. We're going to unravel that, and it will make that attachment so nice and smooth into the body. And I'm going to show you when we come back around, just about have all of this cast on knitted. And like I say, don't get too fussy about how that provisional cast on is laying. It all gets unraveled. It can kind of get a little twist in it and look a little messy, and so don't worry about it. Like for instance, right here, you look at this and think, oh my goodness, we got some big long stitches. Well, we do. So here is the end. I'll get it pulled around here. Our end, we'll pull that and see it just tightens that stitch right up. And here's our live yarn that we're now going to knit on this side of the needle, and our first row is complete. Now I know where the green yarn is, that's the beginning of the row, the ending of a row, the beginning of the row, I guess is how I could say that. But we're just going to continue to go around. So that's a completion of row 1. And you just want to make sure that you don't have a twist to where your any of your cast on is up here on the top of your needle. You want to make sure you don't get a twist down here. That first couple of rows, once you get them done, then you're not going to have to watch that closely. But in this first round or two, you do want to just make sure you don't have a twist in it and get the cast on sitting on the top of your needle. So now we're going to go, this is row 2. And what does our pattern say? I should really look. So because we're knitting in the round, our row 1 is a purl row, and every purl row is a knit row when you're knitting in the round. So it says row 1 to purl. Well, we don't do purl, we're doing the knit. Second row, we're going to knit 1, and then we're going to make 1 and knit 2. So I just did my knit 1, and then it asks us to knit 1 or make 1 and knit 2. So typically when I do a make 1, I knit into the daughter, like I told you on the previous video, knitting into the daughter. Well, we don't have a daughter here because that's our provisional cast on. So what I'm going to do on this row is I'm going to knit in the front and the back of this next stitch to do the make 1. And you just simply knit, and I'm going to purl now in, purl into this row to make 1. That's one way to do it. And actually, you know what, I'm not going to do it that way because I don't want that purl bump. So what we're going to do is this first row that we did, we're going to back up and we're going to actually knit 1 more row around. So we're going to call that row 1 that we knitted, we're going to call that the cast on. We're just going to count it as a cast on because I need a daughter to knit into to make 1. And that makes sense to you if you've watched the previous 2 videos. So let's do 1 more row of just knitting around. I kind of forgot that I had done that on I get on video and then I kind of forget my brain sometimes. So just keeping it real here. Yeah, so our first row, we're going to just knit it, and we're calling that the cast on row. And now this is really another knit row we're throwing in there so we can do the row 2 accurately, because that provisional cast on kind of messes things up just a little bit. You just have to be flexible about the patterns. I'm sure you've heard it said, I've said it, I got it from somebody else. Sometimes a pattern is just a suggestion. You don't have to follow it to the letter of the law all of the time. There are times that you absolutely, especially if you're knitting a pattern like what's on the knickers, and you have to really follow that instruction very closely. But on a lot of other things we can improvise, and the more you knit, the more you will feel comfortable doing that. So okay, now we're going to pretend like we just finished row 1. Okay, get these little cast on yarns down there. Now we have a daughter stitch that we can knit into. So now let's start out with row 2, and it's a knit 1. And then it tells us that we're going to make 1 and knit 2. So there's our knit 1. Now we're going to make 1, and this is the leg of the daughter. So if you remember my talking about Cat Brody, I won't make you go through all of that again. But there's my make 1, and then it tells us to knit 2, and we're going to do that 6 times. So we're going to do another make 1. There's our make 1, and then we're going to do a knit 2. So I'll show you my little not so brainy trick, but it is easy for me to get interrupted, and then I think, oh, did I make 2 or did I make 3? So I do this. There's my first knit 1, or a make 1, knit 2, and here's my next make 1, knit 2, and now I'm going to put a third item out there for my make 1. Pick up that daughter. So here's my make 1, knit 2. Okay. Put another little marker. It can be anything. Now I'm going to do another make 1. Knit 2. So there's my knit 1. And now I'm going to turn to come around on the other needle. So that was a make 1, knit 1. Oh, this is the make 1. Silly me. And I dropped that off of the needle. Got it. Okay, we're going to do another one. So I use markers so I can remember what I'm doing here. Or sometimes I use a sticky note and I make a, have a pencil by my side and I make a mark on a piece of paper. But I find just putting an item out there helps solve that problem. Okay, and so we are make one, knit two, and we end up with a knit one. Finish that there. Okay, so we've gone all the way around, and that was row 2, and now we're just simply going to do knit rows all the way around 63 times, and then we'll go into the little tip end of the sloth's hand. It's knitted right onto the end of the arm here, and that's done in a white. And so we're just gonna sit here and go around in circles. Put my little markers away because I have 6 of them there, and that's how many times I repeated that. So this is pretty simple, and we after having done the legs, if this is your first critter that you've knitted, this is just like the legs. You're just gonna knit around in circles, and we have well, actually at this point in time, 21 stitches on the needle by doing those make ones. So this should go pretty fast, and I won't make you sit here and watch me knit. Now, I will say this, that with the flexi flips on the arms, they're so little, I usually just use the 2 needles for holding the stitches and use the 3rd needle for the knitting. If it's a bigger round, like you'll see when I get to the body, I'll have the stitches on 3 needles and use a 4th needle for the knitting. But for this, it's just as easy for me to do on 2 needles. But you could be on circular needles, or we've talked about that before, double pointed straight needles. And probably with if you're doing this on double pointed straight needles, you probably are using 3 needles to knit this. Only because the flexi flip is got the little cable, can we do it on 2 needles? So that's the start of our arm. I'm going to sit here and knit for a while. I'm going to turn my camera off, and when you see me next time, we will be ready to put the little, what do they refer to that on the sloth? It would not be his hand. It's kind of a little like a little claw, I think it is, and probably it's more black than white, but the pattern shows it in white, and so I'm going to make mine in white, but you could do it in a dark color too. So there you go. I'll be back in just a little bit with an arm, hopefully, all the way down to putting on the little claw at the end. Okay, I'm back. I have my arm knitted up. I've cut my yarn off, ready to start row 80. And we're to have 21 stitches on our needle, which I counted. I do. It's always good to know that your stitch count is accurate. And we're just gonna see what happens here with this arm. Claw, I think is what I should call it. So it tells us to knit one, and then we're gonna SSK, slip, slip, knit. So let's do just that. We're going to knit one, SSK, together. I'm just reading my pattern. I don't want to lead you astray. So here is our knit one. Oh, I told you wrong. We're on row 66. That's what was causing me a moment of it's 66. I thought something's not quite right there. So we're on row 66, and it's a knit one, knit two together, oh, and I did that the wrong direction. I should do this accurately. Okay, knit two together, get my tension back here. Okay, there's the knit two together. And I will tell you, I discovered in my book that my row 66 has an error in it. And because I was playing around with this previously, figuring it out before I came back on the screen with you, and I'm going to move my book over here. Hopefully you can read or see this instruction on row 66. It says knit one, knit two together 4 times. And I did that, and I did not have enough stitches on my needle to figure this out. I'm so glad I did this ahead of time of the video just a few minutes ago. Well, a little bit ago, more than a few minutes ago. And I could not figure out why my stitch count was right, but going into row 66. And so I actually sent off an email, found it here in the book to send to figure out what the error was in row 66, because I figured there had to be an error. Well, I figured it out before they got back, but I will say this, they got back to me. Oh my goodness, I forget the name of the person that manages the patterns apparently, and a comma is missing out of my row 66. Knit one, knit two together 4 times. Should read knit one, comma, knit two together 4 times. Only is the knit two together 4 times supposed to happen. I was trying to do a knit one, knit two together 4 times. So I was running out of stitches. It took me a couple of times to figure out that there was a comma missing. And so when they did get back to me, they verified that was the problem with that particular row. So, you know, sometimes our patterns do have an error in them. I don't know. I know there's been a few others in the book, but I don't know that there are lots. And but that is, so check your book out on page 72, row 66. There's to be a comma after that knit one. So I've done the knit one. I've done one of the knit two together 4 times. So we're going to do 3 more of those knit two togethers. So I know that was a lot of words to say all of that, but it was frustrating because I wanted to figure out this hand before I was actually on the video. So there's the second knit two together. And I was frustrated because I thought, oh no, something's bad wrong. And I thought, how could my knit count be off? But we figured it out. So this is my fourth knit two together. All right, and then it tells us to do a CDD. And so to do that, I was left with one stitch on this needle. I'm going to take that one stitch and put it on this needle, so I'm just knitting them all right there. So to do the CDD, we're going to slip 2 stitches knitwise together. So I'm going to put the needle in right there on the left, pointing over to the right, and I'm slipping those off. And what happens to those is they get a twist in them when you slip them off that way, which is what they want you to do. And then we're going to knit 1 and slip those 2 stitches right over the top of that knit stitch. And there it is, okay? And so when you can get it to where you can view it, that stitch then that we slipped, they are just laying in a nice angle that we're going to be doing that several times, and it's just going to make a nice line and curve right there. So it's important, as I've said earlier, that we do those SSKs and CDDs in the right direction. So the next instruction is to do an SSK. So that is and we're going to slip these individually. Slip, slip. And now we're going to put them back on the left hand needle. And we're going to knit through the back of that stitch. Well, so that slipped off. Knit through the back. Sure. Okay, there. And you can see the first decreases that we did, that was the CDD. The stitches are angled in this direction, and these are angled in that the opposite direction. And we're going to do the SSK 4 times, just like we did the knit 2 togethers 4 times. Now we're going to do the SSKs 4 times. And I sometimes slip my needle in when I'm going to do those together, and just kind of put a little tension to stretch that out a little bit. It helps us to be able to knit through them. So I'm going to do slip, slip, put those back on my needle on the left side, and knit those together. Whoop. Whoop, up, up, up. By staying in the camera, I notice I slip out of the camera sometimes, and I don't mean to do that, but I appreciate your patience. Okay, there we got that. And I'm going to slip. Whoop. Didn't slip those correctly. Slip. Get down onto the end of your needles where it's tapered. It's easy to get too far up our needle, and then you just can't, can't get a hold of those little stitches like we're supposed to. And I split that one. I was trying not to. Okay. Put them back onto our left needle. I don't know why it is. Sometimes, you know, they just go so smooth when you're doing this SSK, and I think it's because the knitter doesn't stay consistent in the tension, and so sometimes they're a little looser than other times or tighter than other times, and that's why it works better sometimes than others. It's a knitter's error. And we have one more of those to do, of the SSK, so we're gonna slip, slip, put them back onto our left hand needle and knit through the back. Okay, and knit one. There, ended up correct. Get my tension all pulled together there. And get my yarns down where they belong. Okay, we got row 66 done. And now we are going to knit 13 rows. So I'm going to sit here and knit those 13 rows. This should go pretty smooth here. I was so excited today in Oregon. We are finally with no rain and we have sunshine. It's been in the low 60s for days and days and rainy, and now all of a sudden it was 80 yesterday and it's supposed to be 85 today, and it's like, oh my goodness, us Oregonians are hardly ready for that. But we see a little sunshine here in Oregon and we get kind of crazy. People, you know, you feel like you've come out from your your dark tunnel, and it feels so good to go outside and have sunshine. And oh, the flowers are, you know, popping up all over. And if you've never been to our part of the country, we get kind of a bad rap because we do get rain. However, I just have to say we don't get as much rain as a lot of places do as far as inches. It's just that it comes down slower. We call it drizzle, and we can just have light rain that'll last for days. But what that does produce, this time of year, we have the most beautiful flowers. Everything is very, very green. And right now, all of the fruit trees are starting to blossom. All of the ornamental trees are just busting out. We have lots of, oh, I don't know the names of them, but they are like, you know, the pink trees. And some of them are really light pink, and they're an ornamental. They don't produce a fruit. They just have beautiful, beautiful blossoms. And with all of that comes pollen. And so our allergies have been driving us crazy the last couple of days with everything wanting to bloom all at one time, because we've had one of the wettest Aprils in history since records were being taken. So it's been kind of interesting around here. These end pieces right here, I really need to have on the inside. And before I go any further, I am going to, well, I think I'm just going to thread them onto a needle. That's going to be the quickest and easiest to just work them through. I could use the crochet hook, but no need to expand that out any more than I should. So just right where it came through, I'm going to pull that through, and I'm going to do the brown one. I'm going to go back and secure the one that I just fed through, and this one goes right there. So I'm going to secure these, because once this all gets knitted up, I won't have a good way to secure these to make sure it doesn't pull through. So I hope you can see this. I just kind of roll it back just a little bit, and I don't make a knot or anything here. Again, if you're using the sheep G's, because it does have a little bit of a texture to the yarn, it actually it sticks to itself, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm just going to do that one more time. If I put this over here on the cable, I can get in there. Just another little. Okay, now I'm not going to cut this real short, but I am going to shorten this up just a little bit, and I'm going to push it down inside that arm, because I don't need that. I won't need to get a hold of that anymore. Just use my fingers to poke that in there. And I'm going to do the same with the little white one. It needs to be secured too. Just a couple of loops. So I'm just picking up, going through the purl bump on these inside stitches, so it'll never ever be seen from the front side. And look at, I just pulled this a short piece, and I pulled my needle right out. I want to get that through at least one more little stitch here. Okay, and just using my finger, going to push that down in there. Now we will be stuffing this, but not till this is all done. And now I can continue knitting around those, what did I say, 13 rows? Yes. And it does talk about when you stuff this, that you kind of get a little bit of a bend in it. So we'll have to play with that when we go to stuffing this little hand. I've never done that before. So this is just straight knitting around. So I'm going to sit here, finish knitting these, and then I will be coming right back. Okay, I have my hand all knitted up, got the claw knitted up, and I had a video disaster. I had made a video showing me stuffing this part and closing it up, and for some reason my camera went into slow record mode. So I have a piece of video that I can't use, but I think you can figure this out. One thing that she does talk about is, kind of shaping this a little bit. If you look back on page 112, she talks about stuffing this. There's going to be some top stitching on this to kind of make it look like a claw. But I think the idea is when you stuff it, to not make it too thick and round so that it can have a little shape. And then I'm finding just taking smaller portions of the yarn of the stuffing, and I use a chopstick. This particular chopstick works really good. It has a little bit of a excuse me, of a blunt end here, so that kind of helps tamp it down. And I find smaller pieces on the yarn work best on the arm, because the arm isn't as big around as the leg, and so I compensate for that. So I just stuff a little bit at a time, tap it in there, don't get in a hurry. I think the worst thing to do is getting big chunks and then think, well, I'll move those around after I get them in there. But a little bit at a time seems to work the best. I think that's going to look pretty terrific. I'm going to go ahead and make the second arm, and in another day after tomorrow, I'll post another video, video 4, and that will be starting the body. And the nice thing is we'll have the arms and the legs all ready to be knitted into the body. So hurry and get your arms and legs done, and we'll get on to video 4 for the rest of the body, and video 5 will probably finish it up with the head. And try not to make these videos too long, but the head probably is going to take a little more time. So I hope you're having fun with all of this. I appreciate all the wonderful comments, and I know many of you are watching, and that just makes it fun for me. So I'm anxious to see pictures of our finished sloths, because we're going to do the clothes too. So that will be some more videos. So we have a ways to go yet. So I'm going to step out of this video now, and we'll get the arms finished. Bye now.